his behavior at face value that he's just an asshole. And he's not just an asshole. He might act like an asshole, but he's a hurt little boy.
Hey, and welcome back to the Smart Couple Podcast. What's up? Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming. Thanks for playing. Thanks for learning. You are about to learn. Isn't relationship cool? We're learning about relationship, guys. All right, my mission in life is to bring you relationship education, which you never got. It wasn't taught in school. Imagine a world where we were educated about conflict and communication from a very early age, and we all had to pass some exam and demonstrate that we were proficient. Jesus, imagine a world where it's like, wow, we know how to work through our shit. That, my friends, would be awesome. So here at The Smart Couple, we play the game of relationship this way. Here's the basic rule. Work on yourself. Face your own shit. Learn about yourself. Learn about your triggers. Learn about what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Stand in your value. Ask for what you want. Be direct. We teach you lots and lots of tools here, and I continue to receive an amazing amount of emails saying thanks. And here's how you can thank us, guys. To do me a small favor of exchange, all right, is leave us a review, right? Please don't send an email. Just write a review on iTunes. That, if you're getting value here, I challenge you to give value back. Just write a review. That's it, okay? If you've been served here, write that down. That's your pre-action step here. Just write us a review. Say, thank you. This has helped my marriage, my family relationships, whatever. Be specific, be concise. No one reads these, 5-page reviews. Just write a little short thanks. All right. As you know, this podcast is for growth development-oriented people. And if you're new, that's the program. You have a great relationship by earning it. It's not given to you. And if you think that, you're going to lose. And you'll be alone. And this podcast is about finding the best solutions to your relationship problems and challenges. Yes, you have relationship problems. That's you. I'm talking to you. Everybody's got them, okay? You're not unique. You're not shameful or bad or wrong. You're normal, and welcome to the human experience. We here at the Smart Couple Podcast, we interview relationship experts, psychologists, psychiatrists even, psychotherapists, coaches, couples, authors, bloggers, and normal everyday people on what it takes to have a strong, fulfilling relationship over time. The Smart Couple is what you become when you go to school for a relationship. And that's why I founded the Relationship School, as I was alluding to earlier. Okay? The badge of Smart Couple gets awarded to you by yourself and your partner when you apply yourself and you learn how to do relationship and partnership over many years. That's why I created the Relationship School, to give you the class you never got. All right? And by the way, we'll be enrolling that. We already are. People are emailing me a lot, and I'm interviewing people to be accepted into the Relationship School and our Relationship Coaches training program as well. So stay tuned for more on that coming up. All right, in this episode, we cover narcissism in relationship. I get a fair amount of emails and comments, certainly on Facebook, and people telling me, hey, talk about narcissism. What do I do with a narcissistic partner? How do I get out of a narcissistic relationship? What do I do if I'm dating a sociopath? And lots of questions. And then what's interesting, sometimes I run ads on Facebook, and some people will shame me for trying to help those of you who are in a narcissistic relationship. And what they don't realize is they're indirectly shaming you for being in a relationship with a, quote, narcissist. But they don't understand human relationships. So ignore people who shame you and make you wrong for being in a challenging relationship, right? We attract who we attract, and it gets interesting and complicated. So I've got my friends Jeff and Rachel coming on the show here, and they're therapists here in Boulder, Colorado, mostly work with couples, and Rachel works with individuals. And they have studied extensively with Stan Tatkin, and they use his model, the PACT model of couples therapy. And it's what my wife's training in, and it's very effective. And I recommend you check it out if you're a couple. But you got to find someone really, really skilled. Just because they're PACT doesn't mean they know exactly what they're doing. But I would be recommending that you go see a PACT couples therapist that's been certified and that actually knows their shit. So Jeff and Rachel are that couple themselves. They know their shit, and they supervise groups here, and they have full practices in Boulder, Colorado. They work really hard. They've got their own business going on the side, as you'll hear about, and they're just good people, okay? They've got a lot to share, and I wanted to pick their brains about narcissism in particular because they study it. And they studied it in grad school, but they also are studying it now because they help train therapists to work with really challenging issues such as personality disorders in relationship. Now, if you're like, what is that? You don't have to worry too much about it. We'll cover a little bit about that in this episode. I'm personally not that into labels, okay? Just qualifier here. I went to grad school and I went to a very alternative program, and I still had to learn the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, and that basically labels everybody with disorders. You're ADHD, you're bipolar, you're depressed, you're narcissistic, you have borderline personality disorder. Okay, there's a massive manual that labels people. And why do we do this in our culture? So that we can treat you, right? We label you so we can treat you and medicate you. And it has a place, okay? But I'm not a huge fan of the medical model when it comes down to treating people's problems. I just think we're way more complex, okay? You can't just give someone a medication and fix them. In fact, most of the time you're numbing them from the pain they need to make their journey. Regardless, narcissism comes up a lot in relationship, and Jeff and Rachel here are going to define what that means and what to do if you are in a narcissistic relationship. And they're going to challenge you to look in the mirror and look at yourself and your own issues. And anyone that's listened to this podcast knows that so much of what I teach is about taking personal responsibility. Okay, and we're going to talk about that here if you find yourself in this kind of challenging dynamic. All right. Okay. Let me read a little bit about Jeff and Rachel. Okay, Jeff is core faculty of the PACT Institute, where he trains clinicians in a psychobiological approach to couple therapy developed by Stan Tatkin. He's a PACT co-trainer, and his wife, Rachel Cahn. They're also the co-creators of Dharma of Love, helping couples grow beyond the foundation of safety and security into greater compassion and wisdom in daily life by utilizing committed relationships as a means to develop spiritually. Okay, Jeff's in private practice. He's worked for more than 25 years in the field and has led lots of workshops. He was a faculty member at Naropa University, where I went to grad school, Colorado Mountain College. He's taught at the Hakomi Institute and guest teacher at Colorado State University. Rachel has completed 7 years of training in the psychobiological approach to couples therapy, the PACT model, with Dr. Stan Tatkin. Also core faculty there, along with Jeff. And she and Jeff are teaching the PACT Level 1 training here in Boulder. And for more than a decade, Rachel has facilitated EMDR trainings for therapists. That's a trauma modality. And spent 4 years as a teaching assistant in the Hakomi Comprehensive Training for Therapists. Okay, so these people know their shit, right? Rachel uses her strengths as a body-centered, attachment-focused therapist. Sought after clinician, teacher, and consultant, Rachel also leads consultation groups for both PACT and EMDR clinicians. Again, here in Boulder. And these guys rock, and they're going to rock it out for you here. Okay, let's get right to it. Stay tuned to the end for your action step, and let's do this. Welcome to the show, Jeff and Rachel.
Hi, Jason. Good morning.
Thanks, Jason. Great to be here.
Yeah, so grateful for your time and energy here. I'm really psyched to talk to you two, particularly about narcissism today, as it shows up in the context of a long-term relationship. And will you guys just start by just saying, again, a little bit about yourselves? I also want to just hear the highly condensed version of, how long you guys have been married, how'd you meet, and what are you guys up to in the world?
We are both level 1 trainers for the PACT Institute. So we train couple therapists in creating secure and safe relationships where they can deepen into lasting love, basically.
So, we teach Stan Tatkin's work. That's one of the things that we do. We also are launching our own program called Dharma of Love, which supports couples in using their relationship for spiritual maturation. And, maybe at another time we could talk more about that. And then we've been married for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And we met through a professional training. Actually, it was a Ron Kurtz event, and Ron Kurtz was the founder of Hakomi. So
we both have a background in Hakomi and also trained together in PACT. And so we're therapy nerds, and we're really interested in putting things to work in our own relationship.
Awesome. Yeah, 10 years. Congrats. Our 10 year is this year, actually.
Nice.
Congratulations.
Yeah. It's a journey. You guys, it's all been roses though, right?
With the thorns.
As of 3 minutes.
Nice. With the thorns, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, ups and downs, right?
We have the full meal deal. It's a 3-dimensional relationship. So it's got all aspects.
Yeah, cool. So I'm psyched to have you here, and I want to get right into narcissism as it shows up in a long-term relationship. So can you guys just kind of starting high level, what is narcissism? When we hear that term gets thrown around a lot these days. Maybe what's kind of the clinical definition and what's sort of the street level definition?
Okay. Maybe I'll start with a more clinical definition. We're talking about a problem with the self. And, that, God, we could spend years just exploring what is the self. But, just as a working definition, if we think of the self as the collection of thoughts, emotions, memories, experience, psychophysiological processes, expectations, longings, identity, all that, we can just label the self. So there's a problem in the development of the self and how the self is actually experienced and related to with narcissism, and specifically that there is a false self, that there was some kind of arrested development very early on. And so that little boy or girl had to develop a false self in response to an environment that was very insensitive. You want to add to that?
Yeah, narcissism is a spectrum, like all human conditions. It's a spectrum. So on the one hand, we have narcissistic personality disorder, which is sort of more extreme and exaggerated and almost can become a caricature. And at the other end of the spectrum, we have healthy narcissism. I mean, we all have some degree of narcissism. It's a developmental stage where the world is our oyster, when we're just beginning to walk and discover and have autonomy. but in that stage, if there isn't a sensitive tempering with limits by reality, then that expression can become sort of a grandiose exaggeration of autonomy. It- So there's sort of a poor relationship with reality. Um, but a healthy narcissism is that kind of sense of healthy self-entitlement, that I'm entitled to good things, I'm entitled to healthy things for myself. But when that gets sort of blown out of control into an exaggerated entitlement at the expense of others, that's where we begin to enter into the territory of an unhealthy expression of narcissism. So it's a big spectrum.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. I love the inclusion of the healthy narcissism. That's important to share, right? That we all put ourselves first sometimes, and that's a good thing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And then to your example, Jeff, so if we go back to childhood, we've got a boy or a girl who, for whatever reason, they got the message that who they were was a problem. And you're saying that they developed a pretty sophisticated defense strategy to defend against that vulnerable part. And now they have like a big mask or something that they're wearing because that goes better with the big people. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that's one aspect of it. Exactly, that there's a veneer um, of a person, and yet their true needs, their true longings that would lead them to real happiness, in a sense, those get shunted, those get put underground because those are not rewarded.
Yeah. And so what is rewarded gets promoted. And so I might become a performer. That might be my strategy. I might be a good athlete. I might get good grades. And that starts to build this bigger wall and this facade to protect what's behind it or buried. Is that kind of?
Yeah, exactly. That what ends up happening is that person grows to need what are called narcissistic supplies in order to have the self feel intact. So it needs the positive reflection of others, and we all need positive reflection of others, but positive reflection of others to such a degree that they're chasing being the best, being special, being superior, and that's in a sense a never-ending process.
Right. Okay. And would you guys say that, just my own guess here, correct me if I'm wrong, that general personality disorders is basically that same thing where we develop a strategy to defend against that which is threatening or vulnerable?
Yeah, I think in a nutshell, that's right. And it's more complex in the sense of how the self kind of contorts itself to do that, but it's really responding to reward in the environment and what is rewarded, because we all um, promote what's rewarded. And so if helplessness is rewarded, or if performance and being special and unique and perfect is rewarded, that gets accentuated.
Yeah. Now, this sounds like really normal human condition that we all were hurt as kids and we all sort of defend and then develop some kind of strategy. What makes personality disorders or narcissistic tendencies, what makes them so strong and overt to get kind of a label?
I'd say that I like what you were saying, because I agree. We all get hurt. We all get our ticket punched in some way, just being a human being on planet Earth. There's less than optimal experiences as a kid. We get hurt in certain ways. But specifically with the narcissist, because there's such a wound to self, that later in life, relationship arena, they might have problems at work depending on degree. Some people, though, who have narcissistic really far in life, you just pick up the newspaper, I won't say anything more about that, and be highly successful. As far as relationship goes, that's the arena, and that's the arena that you're interested in, where this stuff really shows up, because now someone's close and and their defenses are going to wreak havoc on potentially wreak havoc on a relationship, on an intimate love relationship.
Okay, great. I'm glad you brought it kind of into the adult realm. So this kid grows up, becomes an adult, gets involved with another person in some kind of partnership, gets married, gets a boyfriend, girlfriend, and like explain what starts to happen more here, where this gets complicated and why. Like, how does someone start to spot the level of narcissism that could become a real problem?
Well, I think that, if we take that golden child and grow them up, fast forward to being an adult, there begins to, we begin to spot um, that self-involvement, right? That over focus on the self that comes at the expense of focusing on the partner or on the relationship itself, the well-being of the relationship. We begin to see that sort of that grandiosity, that need for this idealized image, to sort of be bigger than life, larger than life, to be special and inflated. So there's that entitlement that we talked about, but it's not the healthy kind of entitlement, but a kind of entitlement that puts oneself over others. We can begin to see partners who are opportunistic, wanting to have what they want regardless of the cost of that,
Mm-hmm.
and a certain unfeelingness or not being having empathy for the partner, and we can see deception, because again, that deceptiveness is often to protect one's own wants and needs, and that I'm entitled to what I want and need regardless of how that impacts others or my partner or the relationship.
Yeah, that's great. Those are like almost, did you say there, it sounded like three signs, like deception, entitlement, and was there one more?
Self-involvement and
Lack of
that
empathy.
grandiosity, lack of empathy. I think there's a
Okay,
few more.
like 4 or 5.
Yeah, exactly. They're all sort of in that same bucket of,
Okay.
yeah, overemphasis on their over engagement with the self.
Yeah, and because the partner starts to have needs, it's going to be pretty hard for the narcissistic person that's going to challenge them, right, in some way?
It is,
Yeah.
exactly, because they tend to see partners as an extension of themselves, sort of as an object that boosts them in some way, rather
Oh,
than
interesting.
seeing their partner in as a real person.
Because they actually have a real problem with differentiation. So even their partner who has different ideas, different thoughts, different feelings, of course, a different brain, different human being, that will potentially be a threat to them. And so that they're going to have to either be critical or attacking or devaluing to their partner in order to maintain their sense of self.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. And you said something interesting there, differentiation, because in a way you're saying they're not differentiated, right? But in their mind, they would think they're highly like individual and differentiated. So can you explain what you mean there?
Yeah, and the point that you raise is, one of the one of the defenses that they use in order to just cope being him or her is denial, which means bending reality. So now I'm actually forgetting the question that you just asked. But the relationship between differentiation and narcissism. So they can't tolerate, they're actually fused in a sense to their partner. They might think of themselves as different and special and unique and better, but they're really so dependent upon how the other one sees him or her that when their partner has a different view of anything, and especially of them, they're going to experience it as an attack.
Totally. Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what's happening with the person who's dating or married to someone who's narcissistic? What's going on with them that they might find themselves in this kind of relationship?
Well, if we look at partners as puzzle pieces, what's as Stan Tatkin has a great phrase, the bite that fits the wound. What is that? If we look over at the other partner, So if a narcissist overfocuses on themselves, people who end up with narcissists tend to underfocus on themselves and overfocus on the other, overfocus on the relationship.
Yeah.
Often these are people who come into the relationship with their own types of insecurities, and low self-esteem. So to have someone who looks very confident and big and they've chosen you, that can sort of boost up a person who has that low self-esteem. It makes them feel special in some way. And they can bask in the shine of the narcissist. But what happens over time is, as the narcissist begins to reveal their true colors in disregarding the partner's needs and wants over time,
Well, yeah.
to feel like they're settling for crumbs.
Yeah. And so they keep chasing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, wow, this is great. So in a way, it's like opposites, and opposites attract. So this is for the listener, by the way. Listener, if you're, because the narcissist is most likely not going to listen to this because they have nothing to learn.
They've turned it off long ago.
Right? It's like, I'm not narcissistic. What are you talking about? I don't need
That's right.
relationship help.
You know all this already, Jason.
Yeah, I could teach this class. So the listener, are probably the person, if you're interested in this conversation, you might be dating or married to someone like this. And so I think Rachel's zeroing in on you here, that it's possible you have low self-esteem. It's possible that it felt good in the beginning because this big, powerful person chose you. And now you're getting scraps, which is probably really unsatisfying. So Jeff and Rachel, when we've kind of identified, okay, there's this narcissistic person, narcissistic tendencies, very self-involved. We've identified that there's the person dating the narcissist who might have low self-esteem, lower self-worth. They've attracted someone who's kind of grandiose because they're minimizing themselves, perhaps. How do you deal with this in like a couples session? What needs to start to happen here?
Okay. So in the therapy, there's a couple of tasks. One is, that person, let's just, not to be stereotypical, but let's just say that the narcissist is man and the person with the narcissist is woman. But, this woman has been living on crumbs, living on fumes for way too long, and basically settling for how things are. So one move we're going to make is to really support her in throwing down, having more of a voice, expressing her needs in a more direct way, and not willing to just go along with anything, because she's been complicit. I think Terry Real calls her the
latent, blatant.
Right, that he'd be the blatant and she's the latent. So that's one task. Now the other task is to really, for one, to understand the narcissist. I mean, narcissists are people too, and I think it's really easy to just become hypercritical of them. But they're a human being that has been deeply hurt, and the work for that person, let's just say him, will be to help him tolerate the overwhelming painful feelings of vulnerability, of powerlessness, of not good enoughness that he's been so defended against his whole life. And to help him see that he actually, as an adult, can tolerate those feelings and express them, or talk about them, and hopefully she will make space for that to happen. We'll show him that their relationship can really be a crucible for that kind of exploration.
Yeah, that she can actually handle him, and his hurt little boy or whatever starts to come out.
Exactly. She's not going to judge him or make fun of him or use it against him.
Yeah, great. And is the narcissist generally open in your experience to this kind of feedback? I guess it probably depends where they are on that spectrum, right?
Well, I'll be honest, we have to be very tricky in how we do this. We have to be very strategic. You can't just say, hey, dude, here's the deal. This is what you got to do. Because it's not going to appeal to him at all. He's going to say, no, I don't really need that. I don't really want that. In fact, this whole therapy stuff is really kind of bullshit, and I'm not into it. So, how we get in there, we get in there through the back door by interpreting his behavior and what he does out in the world, um, through the lens of his narcissistic vulnerability. Does that make sense? I don't know if it's too.
No, that's great. Just unpack that. What does that mean?
Okay.
How do we,
So
what's the back door look like on a practical level?
the back door looks like, so when she tells you, that she's upset with the fact that you came home late, for the third night in a row from work, you feel attacked, um, and vulnerable, and so then you become really critical of her and just put her down. And you know I'm slipping something in there. What I'm slipping in there is you feel attacked. So I'm actually aligning with what it feels like inside of him
Yeah,
to say
you're validating that he probably does feel attacked.
completely, because he's extremely sensitive. So her upset is a direct affront to his sense of self. But you can't say that just yet. I have to say, well, when she's angry that you came home late, you feel attacked, and so then you fire back and you devalue her and you say something mean, and he'll go along with that. He'll agree with that. But over time, for one, there's an alliance that I'm creating with him as far as I get him. I'm also explaining him to her because she probably also is taking his behavior at face value, that he's just an asshole. And he's not just an asshole. He might act like an asshole, but like you said, he's a hurt little boy who can't handle the fact that his woman is upset because he came home late or whatever it is.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. So she can do a great job of validating him somehow. She could even say herself, maybe at home, like, wow, my approach has been probably a little aggressive and you might feel attacked by me. Is that right, honey? And he might say yes. Is that something that could happen at home?
Yes. And, she can um, protect his self-esteem when she confronts him also. So she could also say something like, God, I know how hard you work and I appreciate that. But I'm bummed out when I'm waiting and I made dinner and you didn't come home. I feel, devalued or disappointed or sad or whatever it is. But starting with, hey, I appreciate how hard you work. To sort of puff him up a little bit before she punches him.
Yeah, totally. This is so great because it reframes the narcissist from being this big, powerful, almighty man or being to actually there's just a hurt little boy behind kind of a thin veneer of, defensive strategy here. And if you can talk to him, treat him like a sensitive dude, it's probably going to go better.
Exactly, precisely. And yet you can explain to him, hey, there's a sensitive dude in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he's going to be like, no, there's not.
Exactly. He's not gonna like you and I, Jason, can talk. We talk that language, but he's not going to be interested in that language. But um, but when we talk about how he feels attacked, that will get his interest.
Yeah, and then we can both validate his hard work and all the powerful things he's doing in the world, and validate our approach probably hasn't been helping him. It's driven him further away.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and what else? Is there something she can do in the sort of man-woman example here? What else can she do on her side, besides like kind of validating and getting there's a scared and hurt little boy in there?
She has to also begin to stand up for reality in a sense. We talked about when the narcissist is growing up, part of the developmental wound is that he was not tempered by reality and limits. And part of her job as a partner of a narcissist is to begin to really stand up for that. If you're not going to come home for dinner, we need an agreement where you're going to let me know. That would be an example of a limit. Or um, y- somehow not devaluing herself and her own needs. um, that's going to be a challenge for partner, is to begin to focus on themselves, because they probably tend to under focus on themselves. And so for the partner, the narcissist, it's about really standing up for themselves and not colluding with that the narcissist gets to set all the terms of the relationship. A partnership means both, and so they have to really inhabit their side of the equation, and fully invest themselves in what they deserve, right? Because then they might collapse into feeling like, well, I don't deserve it, and da da da.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and that's going to further that imbalance. So
This
they
is,
have to really focus on themselves.
yeah, this is so great. And her needs, or his needs, could be a him. We're going with sort of a stereotypical example here. What's Rachel? What might be one piece of homework for her outside of this session or for this podcast? What can she do when he's not around that would actually help her stand in her voice more, her needs, focus on herself more? What's like one thing she could do?
Something that comes to mind is for her to pay attention to what really nourishes her and gives her and supports her self-expression. So it might be creativity, where there isn't just writing sad poetry about a partner who devalues her, but that gives her some voice. Jeff mentioned about really supporting the partner and having a voice, and for her, again in quotes, to find some avenue of self-expression that feels empowering, not against him or against the relationship, but in herself. What does she do and enjoy? Tackle some big hike she's wanted to go on, or take a dance class, or go out with a friend and talk about, read a book and talk about it, or whatever is appealing that sort of helps her find herself and her own voice and her own empowered individuality.
Yeah. Yeah, great. Okay, I love it. Okay, how do you guys know when maybe someone is, I hate to say, too narcissistic, or when the other partner that devalues themselves maybe isn't willing or can't stand up for themselves? How do you really make that call as a couple? Because I know I get lots of emails saying, how much longer do I hang in there with this thing, with this relationship dynamic this way? When do you know when it's maybe time to call it quits, or what are some of the signs that this is unworkable?
It's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how you said both unable or unwilling, because I think
exactly.
a lot of what we're talking about is not, isn't about ability, it's about willingness. If people are really honest on both sides of this problem, it's that it's too scary or too painful to do something. James Masterson, you mentioned James Masterson, who, we learned this stuff from his work. Oftentimes people want to feel better at the cost of getting better, and getting better is hard. Getting better is scary. Getting better means being an adult and making choices that might be painful and have certain consequences, but that ultimately will lead to happiness.
Hey there, quick interruption for women who might be dating a narcissistic man. All right, check this out. I created a quiz along with a lot of other women's feedback on what makes a man emotionally available or unavailable and where he is on the spectrum. So if you take this short quiz, you can assess your guy and find out how hopeless he is or how hopeful the relationship is. Remember, I was this guy. I was emotionally jammed up for years. And some men, honestly, they're so defended or narcissistic that there's no chance that you're going to actually get what you want in a relationship. And this quiz will help you assess him and find out if you actually have a shot with this person. Okay, go to jasongaddis.com/ESH quiz to find out more, to take the quiz and assess your man. All right, back to Jeff and Rachel.
So as far as, when do we tell that person? I guess in the therapy, we would certainly um, push that person to be really honest and clear about what it is that they deserve and what is it that they long for and want, and do they have are they being realistic as far as will they get it here, and not up to us to answer. We don't have a crystal ball and we can't read people's minds, but that this is a dance between these two people to figure out and deal with reality. We're wanting them to really deal with the pain of the relationship and also the potential of the relationship.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yep. Great. Rachel, would you add anything to that?
Well, I was thinking I would add one thing actually to the homework piece for the partner, and that is to also to really begin to examine one's own tendencies towards self-sabotage and self-undermining, because there are likely things that the partner of a narcissist is doing to sort of sell themselves out or betray themselves, that is going against what they say they want in a relationship.
What would be an example?
They say they want closeness or a sense of security, but really don't stand up for that in the relationship. And rather, when it doesn't happen, they complain a lot and feel sort of self-righteous about wanting a really good thing, absolutely, but not standing for it in the relationship in a way that really puts the onus on the partner to either buy in and have that kind of relationship, or I think they let it go too long instead of really um, putting it to their partner like fish or cut bait.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm really hearing the how. It's so much about the how, right? If the delivery is done in a way that is more empowered and I'm standing up for myself versus kind of the complaining, nagging, which is usually going to drive the other person in the other direction.
Absolutely, and that complaining and nagging really comes from a place of helplessness, of not really, it's not really standing for it to have it, but it's complaining about not having it, and that's such a subtle thing,
Oh, yeah.
because complaining about not having it is really kind of coming from that place of being bought into, I can't have this, you won't give it to me, see what a crappy partner you are, but I'm staying with you, and this is kind of what I deserve, and I do settle for crumbs, but this is how it is, right? There's sort of a litany of habituation in one's own mind to staying engaged in that pattern.
Yeah, I really love the distinction there between complaining about it and not getting it versus standing for it and going after what I want. It was something like that. I just really liked how you said that.
Yeah, the complaining about it is almost like this kind of, um, it really is an expression of helplessness, because the complaint is a way of saying, well, I don't have any power to change it, and see how shitty this is, see how shitty my partner is to me, and that may be absolutely true, but the way that partner's holding it is in mind is as though they have no say, no power, no
Yeah,
influence.
which keeps you
And they
right where you are, stuck.
exactly. And that's what I've seen with partners of narcissists, is that they don't exert the influence that they do have on the relationship.
Yeah, and recognize they actually do have influence. They can have a say. They can actually shape this thing, do something about it. Yeah, and go after what they want. And if they, maybe this person isn't fit because if you try really hard and you are standing in your value and your worth, going after it, and after many months or however long, the other person isn't playing, then it's like, great, I value myself so much, I'm going to move on.
Exactly, and willing to deal with the pain of that, willing
Exactly.
to face that loss for something better. And a lot of people aren't willing to do that, so they'll hang out with the status quo and somehow talk themselves into it or bend reality, in order to stay in something, so they don't have to deal with the uncertain future.
Yeah, and the discomfort and agony or whatever they're gonna have to feel, right? Yeah, I love this because it sounds to me like both partners are in this type of dynamic that we're talking about are kind of stuck in a pattern in themselves of not wanting to go there inside themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right? The sort
Exactly.
of helpless partner is so focused on the other person, they're not willing to be with their discomfort and kind of relax and learn how to work with it. And then the narcissistic partner may be so defended against it that they're not even willing to feel it because they don't even know what's going on. They're just like, no, I'm fine.
Exactly. So they're both complicit in creating this charade of a relationship rather than dealing with reality. And reality, as you know, and I know you know, because I've read some of your stuff, reality can be fucking painful. And yet, what's the alternative? We deal with reality, we grow, hopefully we become wiser, we become more capable, more skillful in dealing with reality. But to shy away from reality keeps us really young and kind of delusional in a certain way.
Yeah. It's that thing you said about being better earlier, right? Like, do you want to, would you say it was something about not,
Feeling better at the cost of getting
yeah,
better.
yeah, I love that. Feeling better at the cost of getting better. That's so good.
That's Masterson.
Yeah,
Okay.
you
And
said that.
that's his, yeah.
Wow. Good one. Cool. Okay. What are some, just, this is, I guess, what I'm kind of wondering out loud here about is narcissism in general. It seems like because it's a relational injury, that's one of the best places to deal with it. Would you guys agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because that's, I've heard it said that, wounds that occur in relationship are healed in relationship. And I think that's really true. It's the only place that it's possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the good news if you're dating a narcissist out there or married to one is you've got probably a better chance of helping this person. And they've got a better chance than if they're just kind of that real lone wolf art narcissistic that just kind of bounces from relationship to relationship.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What other resources can the sort of novice person that might find themselves in this dynamic? It sounds like they need to, I'm kind of hearing they need to see a therapist like you guys that can actually work with this type of dynamic. And I think the PACT model does a really, really good job at this. Hearing from my wife, Ellen, about how you guys work with this type of dynamic. Because I'm guessing most couples counselors out there just kind of don't know how to work with this. And they might overly challenge the narcissistic person, or they might be like, well, you don't seem like you want to work on it, so see you later. Um, so I guess I'm asking you guys, where can people turn to for resources here?
Yeah, I think PACT, if the person is a well-trained, higher level PACT therapist. I also think Terry Reel's work deals with this as well. So people that have studied with Terry, I think he goes after this as well.
Yeah, and he's been on the
Um,
podcast. I'll include that episode in the show notes.
I'm not, it might be a little bit more clinical, but James Masterson book, The Search for the Real Self, deals with personality disorders, which, include borderline and narcissistic disorders. And,
So that's for someone who wants a deeper dive, maybe more clinical approach.
it's not super clinical, but it's not for clinicians necessarily. But it does have some information in there.
Great, guys. Anything else that you would want the listener to know just about this type of dynamic before we close here?
I think what's important, I've seen numerous books out there that really pathologize the narcissist, and it's more about a warning to stay away from those people. But the reality is we're attracted who we're attracted to. If you find yourself in a relationship and you realize, wow, this person might have some kind of issue with narcissism, it doesn't mean that it's a sentence in hell. Relationships are workable. Human beings are workable. So I would suggest, that that there actually is hope. Um, the reality, though, is most people are motivated by pain, and have to look inside and see, what aren't they getting that they really want to get, and speak up for that, and hopefully facilitate some kind of um, relational evolutionary journey to improve the relationship, um, as well as the narcissist too, because I think there still can be a faint glimmer of something not being quite right. No matter all the success that he or she has experienced, they still feel bad about themselves, and to get curious about that stuff, because it doesn't actually have to be that way.
Well, I think that we have to remember that relationships are really a two-way street. And it is tempting and easy, perhaps, to point the finger at the narcissist and say that the problem is their narcissism. But really, that's not the case, because it's equally involving, or somewhat equally involving, both partners. And the way that we, I think, really find our way through things is to understand what something really is. And so um, to really learn about what creates the phenomenon of narcissism and how to handle it, and what is it about the partners of narcissists that that works, in quotes, that works for them. And to really get curious about themselves, so that they can understand, well, what is it about me that I'm doing and not doing that has landed me in this experience in my life. And to approach that search for understanding with a sense of curiosity and openness and non-self-judgment, because that's how we really learn about something, and then we can figure out a way through.
Yeah, great. Cool. So what I'm getting that from both of you is, we got to be careful about pathologizing the narcissist. Like in the simplistic advice out there that I see, sometimes women give other women, or whoever the person that's dating the narcissist, the advice from their friends is like, get out, it's a sociopath, or there can be all these labels, and it's just not that easy. And it ignores the whole other component of the other person and what their part in the whole thing is, right?
Absolutely. And I have to say, if they are truly dating a sociopath, do get out.
Yeah, and it still might be really hard. It might be that you might have to like do some things to get strong enough to actually get out.
Totally, totally. And that's really worth investing in, because um, there's definitely a spectrum with some narcissism, really workable. Narcissistic personality disorder, more of a challenge. Sociopathy, probably not going to change.
Nice. Guys, tell us about, as we wind down here, tell us about what you two are up to in the world. And you mentioned this Dharma of love, and like, give us a sense of where you're going with that, and what's exciting there for you.
Okay, so both Rachel and I have Buddhist backgrounds, and that's been a really important part of our own development and our relationship together. Um, and so, there's been that stream of our life, the Dharma, that we share, and in a sense, the Dharma is really, Buddhism is interested in what is the self, and in a sense, dismantling the self. And then, yet Rachel and I met, as we said earlier, through a professional training. It was a Hakomi psychotherapy training, and Western psychology is really all about understanding the development of the self. And what we've seen, both in our offices and in the community at large, is that there's been a bit of a schism between these two camps. Of you have the spiritual folks that are really wanting to dismantle the self, and then you have the psychological folks who are all about developing the self. And we see that these two streams are deeply complementary. And in fact, unless you're going to be a monk or a solitary yogi in a cave, that it behooves you to understand both of these streams and use your relationship as a vehicle to both develop the self and mature, as well as to mature spiritually, which involves the loosening of the self. So we really see relationship as an opportunity to become consorts for each other and help each other to evolve both emotionally and spiritually.
Well, we are in the process of creating a program for couples, both in person and online, to participate in learning how to do this in their relationship and with their relationship, to really evolve in the context of relationship, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. Because we've found it very exciting to bring together these two streams of our lives, and we think that a lot of people are also interested in joining the spiritual longing and aspiration that they have, and the sort of the home base of connection and partnership, and how to blend those two and make them not two, but one thing, one practice, one path.
Yeah, cool. So cool how you guys just over the years have developed your own relationship and through Stan and your own spiritual work to develop this. It sounds really exciting.
We're excited about it.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, it's awesome. Okay, and where do people find you guys? What's the best way to get a hold of you two?
So right now, we're not as savvy as you are, as far as you're a master of technology, or at least you know who to hire to have really great technology. I've been impressed with your website and your offerings. So right now we just have, each of our very simple websites, and mine, probably the easiest way to get there is Jeff Pincus, so my name.com.
And rachelcahn.com. And the new website is thedharmaoflove.com. So that is soon.
And that's a work in progress. So if people go there now, there's not much to see, but it's being built.
Cool. And on the side, you guys also supervise people in the PACT model. You have your own private practices. You're open to referrals, couples, individuals? Or are you full that you're not available anymore?
Well, I'm open. Yeah. I mean, I do have a waiting list.
You're probably more open to intensives.
Yeah. So lately I do have folks coming from around the country to come work with me over the course of 2 to 3 days. But I don't work with individuals at all anymore. I work exclusively with couples, and there can be a bit of a wait to be a regular couple of mine. But people call. I have a waiting list. I could let them know how long that'll be. How about you, hon?
I'm about a month out or so. I hover around full, but there's usually some room, and typically I save that for new couples.
Great. Cool. Just for the listener, in case you want to follow up with these two. Doing some really awesome stuff. Really appreciate you guys. Thanks for your wisdom. I know this was only one little slice of all that you'd bring, and I appreciate you guys going with me into this detailed little niche here. So thanks again.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, it's really fun to help humans understand humans better.
I agree. Yeah, thanks for being my people that do that out there.
All right. Thank you, Jason, for all you do.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes, there you have it. Narcissism in your relationship. Okay. Are you the more narcissistic partner, or are you with someone who is a little or a lot narcissistic? And, I mean that in the least pathological terms, because as Jeff said early on in the interview, we're all narcissists in a way. And there's, quote, healthy narcissism, or the narcissism that's just where we just look out for ourselves first and we put the oxygen mask on ourselves first, which is totally fine. It's really complicated though when all you do is think about yourself in relationship to another person, and it's all about yourself. And you might be with someone like that. And if you are, take notes from Rachel and Jeff here. They had some really good things to say. And I loved what Jeff said about people often want to feel better at the expense of getting better, right? You want to feel better. I want you to try that on, that maybe you want to feel better and you don't really want to get better. So for example, if you're the disempowered person dating or married to a quote narcissistic person, you got to look at, I just want to feel better and I just want the connection right now. And you're hyper focused on the other person. So your action step today is to reel your energy and attention in back to yourself and start putting attention on your own life and the things that you care about outside of the relationship. And even begin to examine, why do I continue to hang in there with someone who gives me scraps and gives me very little in terms of what I hear other people talking about is possible for me? Why do I do that? And I want to suggest you look to your past and you dig deep inside and you work with a practitioner on your issue, because you don't want to go to a therapist or a coach and say, hey, I'm with a narcissist and can we just talk about him or her the whole time and focus on them and what to do with them? What should I do with them? See how that's so other extrinsic focused? In my work that I teach in the relationship school, it's all about you. We put the attention on you. The microscope is on you. You look in the mirror and you ask yourself the tough questions. Why am I tolerating this? Why me? Why do I not stand up for myself? What prevents me from using my voice here? Why do I allow myself to be treated this way? Okay, so ask yourself the tough questions and focus on yourself this week for 1 week entirely until you come to the next podcast, all right? And I know some of you in the Smart Couple Facebook group are in this relationship because you've commented on that over and over in that group. So partly this podcast is for you, and I want you to report out, was this helpful? Did you actually focus on yourself for a week? Did you reel your energy back in? Okay, get in there, folks. All right, this is this relationship stuff. If you want to make it work, it's about looking at your own stuff and having a partner that looks at their own stuff. And then together you improve and you pivot and you course correct and you work together to find your way in building this thing together called a relationship. And it takes two to build a relationship, two willing people, as I often say. All right, guys, on April 19th, I have got another free web class coming up all about communication. Save that date. It's at 1:15 p.m. Mountain Time, April 19th. And if you just so happen to be with a guy like this and you haven't checked out my ESH product and you have not pulled your energy back, you might want to check out jasongaddis.com/get-him-to-care-1. Get him to care one. And go to that page. I'll put it in the show notes. It'll be at the bottom of the show notes. You can leave your email there and be on your way to learning how to work with pulling your energy back if you want some guidance. Okay. All right, folks. Have a beautiful night, dream time, morning, day, afternoon, workout, commute, whatever you're doing right now. And we'll talk very soon.